What do you say?
Say hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Look at the camera.
Who
are you supposed to say hi to?
Hi. Hi, Laura.
Laura.
Hi, baby Owen.
And Mr. Rodney.
Hi, Mr. Rodney.
Who else did you miss today? Who were you telling me? Mr. Marty.
Hey, Mr. Marty.
What else you gonna say?
Who else?
No, that's it.
Where's Don?
Don's still in Africa.
Where's Don Brain Dump? If he brings his phone here, I'll say, hey, Don.
Yeah, he could watch it on his phone.
Hey, Dad.
Alright. Alright, you gonna say bye bye?
Bye.
Alright, go watch TV. Go on. You blowing him kisses? Okay, go sit down. Alright, go. Okay. Alright, go. Alright. We're gonna see how this goes. I'm here by myself this afternoon, and so I'm trying to keep him occupied so I can get this done. So we will see how it goes. Hopefully he will behave. So today we're talking about Thomas. We know him as Doubting Thomas. So the title of the lesson was I Don't Believe It. And we're staying in the book of John. John chapter 11, 1 through 16. Chapter 14, 1 through 5. Chapter 20, 1 through 9 and 19 through 25. Chapter 21, 1 through 6, and then 12 through 14. So we don't know a lot about Thomas. We know a little bit more about him. We don't know where he's from. We don't know his occupation. We don't know much of anything of that sort, his family. But we first hear Thomas in the books, in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. And we hear about him when we're going through the list of apostles. And he's referred to as the twin. And so that's all we know. We know Jesus picked him out. We don't know why Jesus picked him out. We don't know. We knew some of them. Matthew was a tax collector. Peter was a fisherman. They all had different occupations. We don't know what Thomas was. We don't know why Jesus picked him, but he did. We first hear of Thomas speaking in John chapter 11, verse 16, when Jesus is going back to Bethany because Lazarus died. Jesus was preaching. He was talking. He got word that Lazarus was sick, that he needed to go. And we know this account. He waits. I think it's 2 days he waits before he goes back. When he gets back, Lazarus is dead. Jesus says, this is my summary, why are you upset? He's just sleeping. He raises Lazarus back up. And they didn't understand all of that, but that's why Jesus was in no hurry to get to Bethany. So this is what's going on. They're in Bethany, or Jesus is preaching. He needs to go back to Bethany because he's heard that Lazarus is dead. And the apostles say, we want to go with you. And Thomas takes it a step further, and Thomas says, let us go with you that we may die with you. Now, the reason they think Jesus is going to die, the Jews are out to kill him. The Jews are out to get Jesus. They don't like Jesus. They want him dead. They're plotting to kill him. They're plotting to trap him. They're plotting to end his life. The apostles know this. They've been by Jesus' side. And Thomas says, I'll go with you. We will go with you. I will even go. I will put my life on the line. I will die for you. I will die with you. Let us go. This statement, Thomas is the one who said it. The other 11, the other 12, the other apostles didn't jump on the boat and say, yes, we'll go with you. Thomas steps up and says, let us go. Let us die with you. This statement from Thomas shows his faith in Jesus and his loyalty to him. And to me, the first time he speaks, that's recorded, that's a pretty significant statement. It shows his loyalty and his faith that he's willing to die. The next time we hear Thomas, or about Thomas, not really him speaking, but we're at the Last Supper in the upper room. Jesus is preparing them for his death. Jesus is telling them what's going to happen. They are not grasping it. They're not understanding. But that's where we see Thomas. And Jesus is trying to explain to them what is going to happen and what is going on. And in John 14, 1 through 4, Jesus is telling them in the upper room at the Last Supper, Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, know, and the way you know. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. So he says that, and the apostles are all confused. So verse 5, so that's 1 through 4, John 14, 1 through 4. Verse 5, Thomas speaks up. Thomas is not scared to say what's on his mind. And he goes, where are you going? How do we go if we don't know where you're going? You have to tell us where you're going. He did not understand. And again, they've been with Jesus for 3 years, but they are still expecting a earthly kingdom. They are still expecting an earthly happening, not a spiritual happening. They did not understand that Jesus was the one they're supposed to be looking for. Jesus was the one that they have been waiting for, and they're all confused. And nobody wanted to speak up, but Thomas did. And he says, no, you have to tell us. Where are you going? So we know how to find you. We know where to go. Then, we don't hear about Thomas again. We hear him. Jesus is crucified. Jesus is put on the cross. We know the apostles were there. They saw it. The ones who could stomach it, we know some of them left. But I don't know if Thomas actually sat there and watched or not, but we know Thomas knew that Jesus was crucified. John 20 verses 19, Jesus appears to the apostles. The strange thing, why this is, I guess it is a miracle. What makes this so unusual is the apostles are still afraid of the Jews. The Jews are still after him because they were associated with Jesus. And so they're in this room hiding. The doors are locked. The door is closed. They're probably being really quiet. They're in this room and they're talking. And all of a sudden, they look up and there's this man. The doors are still barred. The doors are still locked. No one has come through the door. And now this man is standing there saying, peace be with you. They're probably all frightened at this point. They recognized who it was. They recognized it was Jesus. Now think if you were in their shoes. You just saw this man hung on the cross. You know he was dead. You know he had no life in him, no breath. And all of a sudden you're sitting there with your friends, your fellow apostles talking, and here he stands. So in my mind, I'd be scared. I would be doubting. I would be in disbelief. Is it really you? But at this time, Thomas was not there. All the other ones were. So what did the other apostles do? Jesus talks to the apostles. The other apostles go out. They see Thomas. And they're like, hey, Thomas, Jesus just came and saw us. Well, of course, Thomas is going to say, oh, you're crazy. We just saw him hanging on the cross. We just saw him crucified. We know he's dead. You're crazy. There's no way Jesus was there. Well, 8 days later, I don't know if it's the same room, but they're in a room. Once again, doors locked, doors closed. They're in a room, I'm assuming, being quiet, talking amongst themselves, but this time Thomas is there. Now, were they in this room expecting Jesus to come back to them? Did Jesus say, hey, in 8 days, I'm going to come back, be in this spot at this time? I don't know. I don't know. We just know they're in a room, whether it's the same room or another room similar, same situation, doors are locked, they're still in fear for their life, they're still hated, and all of a sudden they're sitting there talking, and Jesus appears. And in John 20, verses 26 through 29, this time's a little bit different. And I just picture Jesus standing there, and Jesus just holding his arms out and saying, it's me. Look at the nails, the holes in my hand. Look at my side. It's me. Now, Thomas immediately, verses 28 says, my Lord, my God. Now, Jesus asked Thomas to touch him. He knew Thomas had doubts. Jesus knows everything. Thomas didn't have to say, hey, I doubted, my fellow apostles. They told me you were real. They told me you came back, but I didn't believe them. None of that had to be said. Jesus knew. So Jesus came in. The first time he said, peace be with you. This time it's, look at me. It is truly me. And I honestly think he said that because who's missing? Thomas was missing the first time. Thomas is here. The one who didn't believe, the one who didn't already have the assurance it was Jesus that came back, he needed to prove him. Now, we are never told. Jesus tells Thomas he can touch him, gives him permission to touch the holes, the scars. He does not. Well, I shouldn't say he doesn't. We are not told if he does. All we know is Thomas then says, I believe, and he says that by saying, my Lord and my God. He recognizes who Jesus is. Any doubt Thomas had before, which we know there was doubt, it's biblically proven there was doubt. He was doubting Thomas. But how many of us are doubting Thomas? Somebody tells us something. Somebody says, hey, so-and-so's back in town. I saw them at Walmart. Well, are you really going to believe them? Until you go to Walmart and you see that person, or you're at the gas station and you happen to see that person a couple of days later and kind of that doubt's gone of, oh, yes, that's true. So-and-so is back. They said they would never come back. They were supposed to be in jail for 10 more years. They're not supposed to be here. We all have that doubt. Thomas had that doubt. Thomas was human, and yet he still believed, and as soon as he saw proof, would you please stop? As soon as he saw proof, there was no more doubt. He 100% believed in God. And how many of us are like Thomas? And that's where it ends. That's where the account of doubting Thomas ends. Now, we do hear Thomas 2 or 3 more times throughout the Bible. John 21, 1 through 6. Thomas saw Jesus while fishing. He was with other apostles. They were fishing. They see Jesus, but they were so far away they couldn't really recognize him. They finally figure out it's Jesus. They go closer to shore. They get to shore. And verses 12 and 14 tells us Jesus gave them bread and fish to eat. So I'm assuming he sat down and had a talk with them and a conversation. So, again, that's where we hear Thomas. The next time we hear Thomas is in Acts 1, 9 through 11. All the apostles were there when they saw Jesus ascend to heaven. So that Thomas was there. We have an account of that. That's it. We don't know if Thomas continued to be a believer. I think he did. We don't know if Thomas had any more influence on anybody. What happened to Thomas after this? We don't know how Thomas died. We don't know anything else about Thomas. The last thing we know is he watched Jesus go up into heaven. But even though Thomas had the nickname the Doubter, he was still a believer. We all know somebody who always is looking for reasons to doubt. Always. They always have to have that assurance. They have to believe. They have to just have that physical evidence. Thomas needed to physically see that Jesus was alive. He had to see the scars that made all the doubts go away. How many of us know people like that, or were like that? We doubt until it's proven. We doubt until it's real. So what can we learn from Thomas? There's 4 things we can learn from Thomas. Okay. The first thing we learn is we must be willing to sacrifice as we follow Jesus. When Thomas saw what he needed to do, nothing held him back. He was willing to go with Jesus to Bethany, even though it might have meant death. This certainly sounds like he had faith, and it was a pretty strong faith at that. This makes me think how petty sometimes our sacrifices are. Maybe we have to miss a television show because we had to go to church. Or sometimes we had to stay up a little bit later cooking that dish for that funeral for the next day. Or we get tired because we're working on a project and we just get worn out. Thomas was willing to die with Jesus. That was his sacrifice. When we compare our staying up late, getting tired of working on things at the church, getting tired of cooking food, getting tired, seems kind of petty. When when Thomas was willing to give his life for Jesus. In comparison, those sacrifices that we make seem pretty small. The second thing, we must not let our struggles and disappointments overwhelm us. When we are facing hard times, we must not leave God out of our lives. I've known people who were faced with difficulties and decided God was not helping, so they just left God completely. We may be disappointed over how another Christian treats us. We may wonder why God allows us to suffer, but we must not let those things pull us away from God. We have to continue to trust in Him. Remember that even though Thomas was devastated after the death of Jesus, he never gave up. He was still in that room that second time. Well, really, second time Jesus came back to visit. Thirdly, we must not let one weak moment in our lives define us. The Bible never refers to Thomas as doubting Thomas. His moment of doubt is described, but it is one moment, only one, and he moved quickly beyond it. His identity, despite our perception and portrayal of him, is not rooted in that moment. Think about our own life. At some time, you have said something you regretted or done something you wish you could take back. We all have. Do you want that sin to be the one thing that defines your life? We can raise above our doubts, our mistakes, and our sins. We must not let the times we fail become who we are. We must not let one weak moment set the tone for our entire lives. And I'm just reading these because I couldn't have said it any better. So first, we must be willing to sacrifice to follow Jesus. Second, we must not let our struggles and disappointments overwhelm us. Thirdly, we can't let one weak moment define us. Number 4, God will help us in our struggle to have faith. How kind of Jesus to have appeared in that room the second time when Thomas was present. He didn't have to. Once was enough. When he came in and said, "Peace be with you," he could have been done. He did not have to come back, but he did. How thoughtful to offer Thomas the opportunity to touch his wounds. Jesus knew Thomas was struggling at that point, and he was willing to help him renew his faith. He understood what Thomas was going through. God will help us as well, but just as Thomas did his part by being present in that room, we have to do our part by being open to God's comfort and teaching his word. So it's okay. What I get from this lesson is it's okay to doubt as long as we're a believer. It's okay to question some things, but we don't just stop at the question. We need to dig. If we have a question about the Bible, or a question about what the preacher said that morning, or a question that was brought up in Bible class, or a question about something that's right or wrong, or should or shouldn't we be doing this, I don't need to just doubt. I don't need to just question. I need to take it a step further and look and study. And we get that. We see that from Thomas. Yes, Jesus had to come back twice, but he didn't have to touch him. He just had to see, and he believed. That's all it did to seal the deal. So to end this study, we all walk through storms of life on this earth. Some of us question, "Why me, Lord?" Some of us lose faith. Some of us struggle. Like Thomas, we must continue to want to believe, to search for the truth, and to be ready to listen to God when he talks to us through his word. So Thomas had the doubt, but then when it was proven to him that it was true, there was no more doubts. He continued doing what he was supposed to do. Are we that way? Are we doubting Thomas and we just doubt and we just want to be a doubter and not go any further, not study more? We're just gonna take it at its word. It's okay. We're just gonna doubt it. It never happened. Whatever. Or are we going to study and read and decide for ourselves and figure out for ourselves, okay, this really happened, or this is what I'm supposed to do in this situation, or yes, this is right and that is wrong. What are we going to do? Next week, I think we talk about Barnabas, a friend of many. So I'm going to let you all go for this week. Thank you for listening and have a great week, and I'll see you all here next week.